At 11 p.m., my husband got into bed and, as usual, gave me a goodnight kiss. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but something felt off. It took me a moment to figure it out. He had shaved. Chapter 01. What's wrong with shaving? My best friend Nicole scoffed. A man can't even shave now? He's never shaved at night before. I replied. Maybe he had dinner plans. I shook my head. Oliver never goes out at night. Everyone knows that. He's home by 7 and in bed by 11. More disciplined than a monk. Nicole rolled her eyes. Everyone also knows he loves you so much he'd risk his life for you. Julia, are you seriously suspicious of something? I paused, then laughed. Not really. Just then, Oliver called. Julia, the housekeeper said you barely ate. I had my assistant send your favorite dishes home. Eat something. Move around a bit. Then take a nap. I'll take you to a musical tonight. His voice on the phone was gentle and caring, like he was soothing a child. Nicole sighed. If I shared this recording, no one would believe it's the cold and ruthless CEO Oliver. Can't blame her. Outside, Oliver was known for his icy demeanor and ruthlessness. People knew he loved his wife, but not how he loved. We've known each other for 10 years and been married for 5. This soft, thoughtful, meticulous side of him, he shows it only to me. He knows everything I like, what I eat, what I watch, when I'm happy, when I'm moody, which bag brands I adore, which designer's jewelry I prefer. He remembers it all, to the core. Once, I threw a tantrum, saying he was too controlling, and ran off to a hotel for the night. When I came home, he looked devastated, sitting sleepless on the couch. The moment he saw me, he rushed over and hugged me tightly, his voice trembling. I was wrong. Julia, I'll never do that again. Last year, during a trip to an old town, our guest house caught fire. He ran inside like a madman to find me. 5 or 6 people couldn't hold him back. When I came out from another room and called his name, he turned and ran to me, flames already on his body. He got a scar on his forehead from that. Every time I see it, it breaks my heart. But he always smiles and says, it's the badge of being Julia's husband. Oliver loves me. That's a truth more certain than the sun rising in the east and setting in the west. Of course, I love him too, which is why such a trivial thing like him shaving at night. I noticed it instantly. Chapter 02. I'm a Cancer, sensitive by nature. I also inherited my mother's tendency to overthink and obsess over details. Any tiny disruption to my daily routine can make me anxious. Shaving at night? Most likely for some kind of social event. Since I don't usually have dinner, Oliver eats out at one of a few private restaurants and always comes straight home. He never attends parties or banquets. So what could make him break that routine? Given his status and discipline? Did something happen at the company? Is he hiding it so I won't worry? I decided to go to his office. If it's nothing, great. But if something's wrong, I don't want Oliver facing it alone. I called Alice. She's the CFO at the company and also my college roommate for 4 years. Back then, her family was deep in debt, and I not only lent her money but introduced her to Oliver's company. Alice practically ran downstairs to greet me. After some affectionate small talk, she cheerfully dragged me into the elevator. Julia, you don't visit enough. The whole office lights up when you come. The boss is all ice every day, only when you're around does he smile. We all live for those moments. I couldn't help laughing. Has anything happened at the company recently? Oh, something major. I paused mid-step. What? Our profits doubled. Bonuses doubled. Isn't that big? She beamed with joy. Despite all the hardships she's been through, she remains upbeat and kind. That's why I've always liked and helped her. Oliver was in a meeting, so Alice accompanied me to his office. As we passed the executive department, I noticed several unfamiliar, young, and beautiful women. A strange thought flashed through my mind. Is Oliver suddenly shaving because of one of them? The thought shocked me. Then I scoffed at myself. What nonsense. This is Oliver we're talking about. Back when the company hosted a beauty pageant, he was surrounded by women like goddesses. But not once did he stray. He didn't even make headlines. Compared to that, these girls? Impossible. What's wrong? Alice asked. I bit my lip, but couldn't resist asking. Did Oliver hire a new assistant? Alice thought for a second. Nope. Oh, you mean those girls? With business expanding, we added a new PR team. Boss wanted to be able to get home on time, so now they handle all the client-facing stuff. She tilted her head and grinned. Julia, you're drop-dead gorgeous. Literal campus queen. Are you seriously bothered by this? I sighed. You saw through me. Alice threw an arm around my shoulder, laughing. That overthinking brain of yours isn't going anywhere. Don't worry. Those girls are strictly for PR. Boss never even talks to them. After she left, I sat in Oliver's chair, gazing at the line of framed photos of me on his desk, and sighed. So, no corporate emergency, and not trying to impress another woman. Maybe he just wanted to try a new razor, or maybe it was a random whim. Sigh. Nicole and Alice have said it before, if I didn't marry a man as perfect as Oliver, my own obsessive tendencies would have killed me by now. I really am a certified sensitivity queen, a walking overthinking machine. Knock knock. A woman entered with tea. Head bowed. She bent low and respectfully placed the cup on the table. Madam, if you need anything, please let me know. I froze. Her name was Lily, Oliver's secretary. What surprised me was, she was still working for Oliver. Chapter 03. A few years ago, one evening, Oliver came home from work with a gloomy, dark expression. I immediately sensed something was wrong and asked what had happened. He sat on the couch, silent for a long time. Finally, with great difficulty, he spoke. He had run into the family of the person responsible for the accident. When Oliver was 18, his parents were killed instantly in a drunk driving crash while waiting at a red light. 2 cars, 3 people, all died on the spot. Lily was the daughter of that drunk driver. By the time Oliver found out, Lily had already been working as his secretary for 3 months. His eyes were red, hands trembling. Julia, what should I do? I know she's innocent too, but I just can't control it. I keep wanting to make her pay. At one point, I even wanted to strangle her. I held him, comforting him softly. It's in the past now. You don't have to force yourself to face it. If you don't want to see her, then don't keep her. That was the first time I'd seen him like a helpless child, clinging to me tightly and refusing to let go. A while later, I carefully brought up the matter again. He seemed calm. I had her transferred to another floor. I was concerned. Why not just dismiss her? Are you okay with that? He looked composed. You're right. I can't live in the past forever. I'll treat her presence as a whetstone to sharpen my resolve. Don't worry, I'm fine. After that, whenever I visited the company, I never saw Lily again, and Oliver never mentioned her. I assumed the matter had been resolved. But today, in Oliver's office, I saw Lily again. I remember you weren't his secretary. Lily smiled awkwardly. The previous secretary is on maternity leave. A few of us from logistics are taking turns filling in for a while. Thank you for your hard work. I smiled and nodded. Lily wasn't pretty. She was short and thin, with average features and plain clothes. The way she spoke and looked at people always seemed cautious and timid. Like a gentle, defenseless little rabbit. She bowed low and said softly, Madam, if there's nothing else, I'll excuse myself. As she lowered her head, I caught a glimpse of her neck. There were several red marks. They looked like hickeys. Oliver returned from his meeting, still in his signature white shirt and suit. Crisp and commanding. He leaned against the doorframe and didn't come in. He just smiled at me. You finally decided to visit me at the office. I walked over and hugged him. Maybe I should come more often? Seems like everyone here really welcomes me. He ruffled my hair and muttered, half exasperated. It's mostly just me. Why care what they think? I hesitated before saying, Lily brought me the tea earlier. He paused briefly, then gave a low ahem. She's helping out as secretary for now. Julia, don't worry, I've long since made peace with it. I looked up at him and said gently, my mom always said you were strong and resilient, that you'd overcome anything. Oliver, look at you now, you're doing amazing. Running a company. She was right about you. His handsome eyes met mine quietly. After a moment, he lowered his head and kissed my forehead. Julia, that's all because of you. Chapter 04. 1 week later, on my way back from an art exhibit, I passed by Oliver's company on a whim. I bought some afternoon tea and decided to surprise him. The receptionist greeted me with a warm smile. I winked and told her I wanted to give Oliver a little surprise. When I got to the chairman's office, I knocked. Inside, I heard Oliver's sharp voice. I said, "Do not disturb me." Smiling, I replied, "Oliver, it's me." Click. The electronic lock clicked open. I pushed the door and stepped inside. The curtains were drawn, and the lighting inside was dim. Oliver sat behind his massive desk, smiling as he looked at me. "Julia, what brings you here?" I pouted. "I came to bring you some afternoon tea, but you were so fierce just now." 10-minute break, he said toward his computer. Then he took off his Bluetooth earpiece, pinched the bridge of his nose in exhaustion, and smiled. "I was in a video meeting. I didn't know it was you." I whispered, "Is the meeting still on?" "Yeah. I've muted myself." He gave me a soft smile, his eyes curving. "No matter how busy I am, there's always time to eat the snacks my wife brings me." Since his camera was still on, I didn't go around the desk. I sat on the chair across from him. "Well then, I guess I'll graciously feed you myself." I opened the dessert box, cut a piece of cake with a fork, and handed it to him. He smiled and leaned forward, opening his mouth to take the bite. Suddenly, his brows knit together. A low, stifled groan slipped from his throat. "What's wrong?" I held the cake midair. He squinted slightly, then swallowed the cake. A few seconds later, he said in a strained voice, "It's nothing, probably just fatigue. Got a bit dizzy." I looked at him, concerned. "Then I won't bother you. You still have meetings, rest a bit while you can." He pressed his lips together, a trace of guilt showing. "Next time, let me know in advance. I'll clear my schedule for you." His voice was slightly hoarse. As I stepped out the door, I turned to glance back. Oliver leaned back in his chair, head tilted up slightly. The sunlight filtering through the curtain slits landed on his chest, shadows rising and falling with each breath. But as I reached the elevator, something still didn't sit right, so I turned around and walked back. Just as I reached the corner, I saw the door to Oliver's office open. Someone stepped out. She glanced around. I saw her face clearly. It was Lily. Same plain makeup, same ordinary clothes, same inexplicably delicate air. Only one thing was different: her lipstick looked slightly smudged, with a faint halo bleeding at the edges of her lips. I froze. I hadn't even been gone for a full minute, from stepping out to returning. When had Lily gone in? Could it have been in just that short moment? Or, a flash crossed my mind, the image of Oliver's massive desk. Big enough to hide someone underneath. Chapter 05. At 5 p.m. I watched Lily walk out of the building and head toward the parking lot. She's not tall, yet she drives a big SUV. I followed her in my car. After 10 minutes, I watched her vehicle enter a residential complex. It was a villa community, quiet and beautiful. I was a bit surprised. Lily was just a regular logistics staffer. I didn't expect her to live such a hidden, upscale life. I was driving a Cayenne, so when I told the gate guard I was visiting a friend, he didn't question it and raised the barrier for me to enter. Soon, I saw Lily's SUV parked in front of a house. I stopped far away on the roadside, staring blankly at her home. I didn't know what I was doing. I hadn't even figured out why I was following Lily. Maybe it was the red mark on the back of her neck. Maybe it was her strangely smudged lipstick. In any case, my obsessive personality and habit of overthinking had taken control of my body. I felt dejected, guilty, and even a little ashamed of myself. I sat there for a while, ready to leave. Suddenly, I saw a car slowly approach, a car I knew too well. Oliver's black Cullinan. For a moment, I felt like all the blood in my body froze. I was paralyzed. The Cullinan stopped quietly in front of Lily's house. No door opened, no one got out. With trembling hands, I picked up my phone and dialed Oliver's number. It rang for only a second before I heard his gentle voice. "Julia, what's up?" I forced myself to sound calm. "Oliver, are you still busy at the office? If you're not feeling well, maybe come home early." Oliver chuckled. "I'm out right now. Just left work a bit ago. A senior official suddenly wanted to review a project proposal. I'm bringing someone to meet with him." Who? I asked slowly. My secretary, Lily. Through the car window, I saw Lily come out with a file in hand, rushing into Oliver's car. He was still on the line, speaking patiently. I probably was just overtired today. It's nothing serious. Julia. My secretary's in the car now. We're about to head out. Don't worry, I'll be home by 7. After hanging up, I let out a slow breath. He sounded open and sincere, hiding nothing. So maybe it was just coincidence. A coincidence that the leader called after work. A coincidence that Lily was his current secretary. A coincidence that I happened to act this ridiculously today. Calming down, I watched the Cullinan drive away slowly, circling the flower bed and heading toward the main gate. I started my car, ready to leave too, when something made me freeze. As the Cullinan exited, the gate lifted automatically. I slowly turned my head to look at Lily's villa. It was a beautiful, elegant 3-story home. The upstairs windows had warm pink curtains. The balcony was lined with lush green potted plants, clear evidence of someone's loving care. I sat stiffly in my car like a frozen statue. 10 minutes later, I got out and walked to the front door. There was a keypad lock. As if possessed, I pressed a code. 960703, my birthday. Beep. The lock opened. Chapter 06. For a moment, everything felt unreal, as if what I was seeing was fake, an illusion. I raised my hand blankly and pinched my face. It hurt. It wasn't a dream. I closed my eyes, then pushed open the door, and froze. I had expected to see a cozy, lived-in space, but what greeted me was a room completely out of place. A low-hanging crystal chandelier, an entire redwood-paneled wall, a large oil painting, several sets of high-back dining chairs. It didn't look like a living room. It looked more like an elegant, luxurious dining hall. I stood in the doorway, silently watching for a moment. My heart slowly sank. I had seen this place before, a few times. I video called Oliver during his dinner hour, and the background behind him looked exactly like this. For some reason, I let out a small laugh. In the silent house, that laugh echoed with a strange absurdity. I scanned the room slowly. The bathroom door was ajar. I glanced in and immediately saw something familiar. Last month, on the first day of winter, I had given Oliver a red scarf. I learned to knit it by following a video. Spent half a month making it myself. Now, that red scarf was tied around the toilet lid, dangling down, used as a handle. I went up to the second floor and entered the master bedroom. The first thing I saw was a large bed, much larger than standard size, as if custom-made. On the pillow lay a black lace nightdress, seductive to the extreme. In the walk-in closet, an entire wardrobe of men's clothing, suits, shirts, sleepwear, all Oliver's style. In the bathroom, a matching pair of toothbrushes, towels, a razor. I picked up the razor. There were still leftover stubbles stuck in the blades. It was deathly quiet. Time slowed down. The world seemed to be solidifying. I was trapped in some thick, viscous substance, unable to move, unable to breathe. I didn't know how long had passed when footsteps came from the stairs, followed by voices. A woman asked, "You really don't want to eat?" A man answered, "I'll shower and leave. I need to be home by 7. Suddenly, fear overwhelmed me. My instincts told me I couldn't face the truth that was about to be confirmed. In a panic, I ran out to the balcony and crouched down in the corner. But the glass door reflected 2 clear faces. Oliver, Lily. I hugged myself tightly, trembling. Oliver calmly took off his coat, suit, and watch. Lily stood beside him, her voice soft. "Why not go home a bit later today?" Oliver remained expressionless, continuing his actions. Lily added, "You already told her a leader needed a last-minute meeting. This chance won't come often. You're crossing the line." Oliver's cold voice interrupted. Lily bit her lip, paused, and whispered, "But didn't you enjoy it today?" Oliver's hands stopped at his shirt buttons. He lowered his gaze at her and said nothing. Lily's hand slowly slid under his shirt. "You didn't get enough back there, did you? Want to finish before showering?" As moans and gasps echoed from the bedroom, snow began to fall outside. The first snow of the winter. I stared until my eyes blurred, as if the sky had pulled me into its gray fog. Floating endlessly upward, At that moment, I didn't even dare rush in to confront them. I was afraid of the disgust, afraid of seeing something so revolting that it would haunt me for the rest of my life. I didn't even have the strength to go downstairs and leave. Before she passed, my mother once sighed. I inherited her sensitivity and overthinking, but not her decisiveness and boldness. Luckily, she said, I married someone as meticulous and steady as Oliver. With him protecting me, I'd live a life without worries. My mother saw through me, but she misjudged Oliver. Snow gently blanketed the world in white. Lily walked out, wearing a night dress, looking languid and satisfied. Then came hurried footsteps on the stairs. A middle-aged woman brought up a 3-year-old boy. Auntie Lily, Mommy sent me home, the little boy called sweetly. Lily smiled and picked him up. At that moment, the bedroom door opened. Oliver came out after showering, wearing a set of identical clothes. The little boy blinked his round eyes and cheerfully called out, Daddy! Chapter 07. Oliver walked up to the little boy, bent down with a smile, and gently touched his cheek, a face that looked almost identical to his own. The boy chattered excitedly about things that happened at kindergarten while Lily stood beside them, smiling softly. Anyone would say they looked like a happy, picture-perfect family. As the boy got more animated, he tried to hug Oliver. Oliver stepped back, avoiding him, and gently scolded, Lucas, you forgot again. Lucas pouted in grievance. Why can other kids hug their dads? But I can't. I don't even smell like milk anymore. I don't drink it now. Oliver glanced at Lily indifferently. Lily quickly stepped forward and coaxed him gently. Daddy has to work at night. He's really tired. Lucas, don't make a fuss, okay? Why does Daddy have to work every night? Lily paused, then turned to Oliver and whispered, Do you really have to leave? Can't you stay just this once? Oliver's face darkened. If she ever comes to the office again, you are to leave the building immediately. If you appear in front of her one more time, intentionally or not, you know the consequences. He said coldly, checked his watch, put on his coat, and walked away briskly. A few minutes later, while the living room was empty, I bolted out of the house. I drove aimlessly, speeding down the road like a machine. Snowflakes slammed into the windshield like sharp arrows, melting into winding streams across the glass. 10 years ago, it was snowing like this too. I was 18, snuggling in my mother's arms in the backseat of the car, when we saw Oliver shivering in the snow. The car skidded and knocked over his glove stand. The driver got out to apologize. Oliver just shook his head, lips tightly pressed, and bent down, silently gathering the fallen gloves with hands swollen red from the cold. He was selling gloves, yet he didn't even keep a pair for himself. I rolled down the window and asked with a smile, How much for a pair of gloves? He straightened up. His dark eyes looked into mine, froze for 2 seconds, and he replied quietly, 8 for ladies, 10 for men. I tilted my head. Then I'll take one of each. You pick. He handed me a pink pair and a black one. I held up the pink ones and smiled. Eyes curved. The men's pair is for you. As the car drove away, I glanced back. The poor, lonely teenager stood tall by the roadside, gazing in our direction like a solitary bamboo in the snow. Later, we met again in college, and then, my mother took a liking to him and decided to sponsor his education. She sent the 2 of us to an elite school overseas. We were married for 5 years. That little boy must be about 3 now, which meant Lily got pregnant a year after we married. And he first mentioned Lily to me only 6 months before that, just 2 or 3 months after my mother passed away. I gripped the steering wheel tightly and cried like a child. Before I turned 28, everything had gone smoothly for me. Beautiful, wealthy, popular, people always said I was a kind and lovely girl, even though my parents divorced. They did so peacefully. My CEO mother and scholarly father both gave me plenty of love. After I got married, Oliver loved and spoiled me. His every glance and gesture showed his affection and favoritism. I had PCOS, and the doctor said it would be hard for me to get pregnant. I was devastated, but Oliver didn't mind. He even joked that Julia would just have to rely on him alone. He made me believe he valued me more than his own life. But all the while I was drowning in grief after losing my mother, while I trusted him completely, depended on him, couldn't live without him, He was in bed with Lily. I don't understand. I really don't. It's like the world suddenly bared its fangs, exposing a side of darkness I never saw coming. I was swallowed whole by a storm of emotions. Shock, fury, panic, fear. Mom, what should I do? I sobbed in a whisper. Bang! A violent crash came out of nowhere. The world spun upside down. I was thrown out of the car. I landed hard on the ground, staring blankly up at the sky. The snow, at last, seemed soft, flake by flake, swaying gently, falling into my eyes. Chapter 08. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself in a hospital bed. Screams rang in my ears. Nicole rushed over, her face full of emotion, and burst into tears as she hugged me. Julia, you're finally awake. You were in a coma for 18 days. Do you know that? If you hadn't woken up, Oliver would have died right in front of you. I whispered weakly. Oliver. Nicole kept comforting me. He's here. He's here. The doctor just forced him to go sleep for a bit. Sigh. You'll see when he gets back. This accident really tore him apart. While the doctor checked my vitals, Nicole never stopped whispering beside me. I had spent 3 days being resuscitated in the ICU. Oliver had waited outside the entire time. Not a single bite of food, not a step away from the hospital. When I was finally pushed out, he collapsed straight backward with a loud thud, scaring everyone. During the next 15 days while I was unconscious, he stayed by my bedside day and night, sitting in silence, becoming more and more haggard. He only left the hospital once to go to a temple on Mount Chung. A passerby filmed it and posted it online. Let me show you. Nicole tapped her phone and brought the screen close to me. In front of a snow-covered temple, Oliver knelt straight in the snow. His head was bowed. Thick snow covered his body, yet he didn't move at all. Like a desperate, frozen snowman. The title of the video was, "What kind of devotion keeps a man kneeling in snow for hours?" Nicole's voice trembled slightly. Julia, he really loves you to death. I'm so jealous of your relationship. I turned and looked toward the sky outside the window. Gray, dark, and blurred. I gently closed my eyes. When Oliver appeared breathlessly at the doorway, I didn't recognize him at first glance. He looked exhausted and worn out. His once bright eyes were now sunken. He'd lost at least 10 pounds. He stood there in a daze, slowly walked over, and cautiously reached out to touch my face. My eyes, as if afraid it wasn't real. Julia, you're awake. I'm not dreaming, am I? His eyes were bloodshot, and his voice trembled violently. I said nothing, silently watching him. Oliver knelt beside my bed, choking up as he said, "Don't be afraid, Julia. Those wounds will heal. I'll be right here with you." That's what he said, and that's exactly what he did. Though I was awake, I still lay weakly in bed. Oliver took care of me personally. He patiently fed me water every day, gently wiped me down, kept track of my medication schedule, and memorized the names of every drug. At night, he'd hold me softly, his voice so tender it felt like it could melt. Julia, it's my fault. I didn't protect you. I won't have dinner out anymore. I'll come straight home after work, okay? Do you know what I was thinking outside the ICU? No, I shouldn't tell you. You're too sensitive. It would scare you. Julia, you can never, ever leave me. Do you understand? The doctors and nurses were all deeply moved, saying they had never seen a husband so devoted and gentle. Nicole swore she'd use Oliver as the template when looking for a future husband. I gradually began to eat, gradually began to walk again, but emotionally. I was numb, silent all day. Oliver comforted me instead, saying it was trauma response, that I didn't need to speak. Not with him around. I was like a small animal, retreating into a shell, quietly licking my wounds. Day after day, I waited for my body and heart to heal. One day, while Oliver was peeling an apple with intense focus, I looked up and saw Lily standing at the door. She and I stared at each other across the room, with Oliver between us. Gone was the timid, cautious Lily. Her gaze met mine, calm and unflinching. Lily's here. I tilted my head and slowly uttered those words. Oliver, without looking up, calmly finished peeling the apple. Only after handing it to me did he turn around slowly and frown. Secretary Lily? Weren't all the documents signed electronically? Chapter 09. Lily walked in, looking timid. There's an important financial document that needs your signature. Oliver frowned but said nothing. I spoke lightly. Why is it you bringing the financial documents? Lily glanced at Oliver, her voice tinged with some grievance. I'm about to resign. I don't have much work left, so I'm just running errands for the finance team. Resigning? I bit into my apple and turned to Oliver. She's quitting? Oliver slowly wiped his hand with a tissue, smirking. How could I, the chairman, be aware of these trivial matters down below? Lily's eyelashes trembled, and suddenly her eyes reddened. Madam, don't laugh at me, but the father of my child wants us to move abroad. So that's enough. Oliver stood up and cut her off. My wife needs rest and must not be disturbed. Go get it signed outside. A minute after they left, I got out of bed. As I rounded the corner, I overheard Lily's voice, shaky and tearful, near the back of the elevator shaft. Lucas hasn't seen you for a month. He misses you terribly and asks every day why Daddy doesn't come home. I've already agreed to go abroad tonight. Let's celebrate Lucas's birthday once. He's a poor kid who's never been held by his father. We also need a proper farewell, don't we, Oliver? Lily looked up at Oliver, tears welling in her eyes, helpless and pitiful. Oliver's tall figure stood straight. I never heard his voice at all. When Oliver returned to the ward, he came in joking with the doctor. He looked cheerful, holding my hand and said, Julia, the doctor said you can be discharged in 2 days. That's great, you finally made it through. I nodded seriously. Yes, I finally made it through. He seemed to remember something and casually said, Oh, there was a problem with the document the secretary delivered. I'll go handle it at the company this afternoon and be back quickly. I looked up at him. How long? Missing me already? He smiled. Don't worry, I'll be back before 7. I slowly closed my eyes and softly said, Okay. At 5 p.m., I completed the discharge procedures. The nurses were surprised. Such an important time, and your husband isn't here? I smiled at them. It's okay, I can manage on my own. At 6 p.m., I took a taxi to that villa community. The young gatekeeper recognized me and politely greeted. Here to see a friend again? I nodded. Could you please open the gate? Of course. At 6:10 p.m., I stood at Lily's door. My phone vibrated, a message from Oliver appeared. Julia, what do you want for dinner tonight? I'll bring it for you. Expressionless. I locked my phone and entered the password. Click. The door opened. Inside, 3 people were seated around the dining table. On the table was a birthday cake, and Lily was smiling brightly, singing the birthday song while placing a party hat on Lucas. Oliver faced away from me, his head bowed looking at his phone. Birthday cake. Huh. I slowly uttered these words amidst the singing. Lily's singing stopped abruptly. She turned her head toward me, a terrified expression on her face. Oliver's silhouette remained motionless. Though his posture hadn't changed, it suddenly seemed stiff, frozen. Auntie, are you my mom and dad's friend? Are you here to wish me happy birthday too? Lucas's rosy-cheeked, innocent voice sounded. I smiled faintly and nodded. Yes, Auntie wishes you a happy birthday. Thank you, Auntie. Can I say something to your dad first? Sure. Step by step, I approached and stood beside Oliver. I looked down at him. Oliver sat there. His profile was tight and tense, his knuckles whitening as he gripped his phone, motionless. Sorry to interrupt your happy family time, but there's a document that needs your signature. I placed the document on the table with a light toss. On the cover in bold black letters, divorce agreement. Oliver's body trembled slightly, but he never looked up at me. Sign it as soon as possible, if not within 3 days. I'll file in court. Since you work with the government, I'm sure you don't want to see this happen. I turned to look at Lily. Her eyes were wide, filled with panic and fear, but also a faint trace of pride and excitement. I gave a low laugh. Lily, you succeeded. This man is yours now. Don't disappoint me. Make sure you tie him down. After I spoke, I turned to leave. Oliver, still with his head down, suddenly grabbed my hand, his voice shaking. Julia, I pulled my hand away coldly. Don't touch me, dirty. Chapter 10. During those days lying in the hospital, I came to understand many things clearly. When faced with life and death, everything else is just a scratch. Before this ordeal, I was sensitive and restless, tormented by betrayal, filled with pain and hesitation, lacking even the courage to face it head-on. After surviving this trial, I realized that nothing in this world is more important than living well. Living well, means calmly accepting the impermanence of life, means facing deceit and betrayal, facing the darkest moments of life, and still slowly standing up, slowly growing stronger. I drafted the divorce agreement while Oliver was away, negotiating with a lawyer. The angel investment Oliver received when he started his business came from my mother, who held 30% of the company's shares. My mother's investment foresight was always ruthless. Oliver's business talent was exceptional. The $2 million invested back then has now multiplied 100-fold, enough to provide me a lifetime of financial security. As for the rest, houses, jewelry, handbags from Oliver, I want none of it. Life is long, and I don't want to be entangled any longer with disgusting people and things. I didn't go home but took a taxi straight to my mother's house. After drafting the divorce agreement, I had the house thoroughly cleaned. Before sleeping that night, I carefully pulled up the covers and whispered to myself in the dark, Julia, it's okay. You can do this alone. Everything will get better. Chapter 11. On the third morning, I opened my eyes in the empty house and saw Oliver. He quietly sat at the edge of the bed, some distance from me, the curtains let in faint daylight, blurring his outline, his gaze dark and unclear. I calmly looked at him. Oliver, tell me you're here to deliver the divorce papers. Oliver stared at me steadily, his expression filled with deep sorrow, and said in a hoarse voice, Julia, I will not divorce you. I was indifferent and closed my eyes. Can you leave? I don't want to find someone else to clean the house again. There was a brief silence. Then his low voice sounded. At first, I really tried to see Lily as just another person, but the day I transferred her, she suddenly knelt down, saying she had recognized me long ago, confessing that if she hadn't insisted her drunk father pick her up that day, my parents' tragic deaths wouldn't have happened. I originally thought she was completely innocent, trying to convince myself of it, but she told me that she was the root of everything. I suddenly lost control and angrily grabbed her by the neck. I have always known that there is a violent side to my personality. When I'm with you, I can control it well, but that day it exploded uncontrollably. Lily seemed to come specifically to atone for her sins. Every time I scolded or hit her, even knocking her out, she kept coming back as if she never tired. Until one time I got drunk and unknowingly had sex with her. We only had that one time. I swear on my life it was the only accidental time. When I realized the unforgivable mistake I made, I wanted to kick her out immediately, but she told me she was pregnant. Julia, I was prepared to not have a child with you, but when I thought about the child, maybe my dead parents could find some comfort in the afterlife. I hesitated and chose to keep the child. During the time you were in the accident, I came to understand that nothing was more important than you. I decided to cut off all those past mistakes, let them go abroad, and never see them again. So the day in the hospital, I promised to spend the child's last birthday with him. I have no feelings for Lily. To me, she was just a woman who, through a twist of fate, bore me a child, like a surrogate. Nothing more. My few private contacts with her since were only about the child. That's the whole truth. Every day these years, I have been filled with guilt and pain, afraid that you would see this dirty side of me. I never expected this day to come. Julia, I love you. Only you. Please, for the sake of the years we've been together, give me one more chance. I have already decided to never see them again. They will never appear in our lives. Julia, I can't live without you, and you can't live without me, right? Oliver spoke all this in one breath, his tone sincere and resolute, eyes filled with pain and sorrow. The room grew completely silent. After a long silence, I said softly, I saw everything. His gaze was deep and dark, staring straight at me. You're weighing what exactly I saw, aren't you? He pressed his lips together without saying a word. I smiled faintly and slowly spoke. On the day of the accident, I saw her hiding under your desk. Sneaking around. I saw you and Lily making love in that house. Oliver, did it satisfy you? It disgusts me. Every moment I spent seeing you in the hospital made me feel utterly sick, utterly nauseous. Today, I saw you cross your own limits again, still lying to me, even swearing on your own life. Oliver, aren't you afraid your words will come true? So betrayal, violence, scheming, and deceit, this is your true face? I spoke slowly, sentence by sentence. Oliver's expression grew pale and worn as my calm words hit him. He showed despair, his back bending inch by inch until he collapsed to the floor. I continued, after every tryst, you make sure to shower? What are you afraid of? That I'll smell another woman on you? Or that you yourself feel disgusted? That house, is it staged to look like a real private restaurant? Just for my occasional video calls? The house password is my birthday, the same as at home, so when I enter the password with you, it looks natural and flawless. Without raising any suspicion? You really are meticulous. Why bother? Oliver, aren't you tired? I'll give you the space. You can live openly and honestly with Lily and your child. Wouldn't that be better? Stop saying you love me the moment I think about you cheating on me with Lily. Then coming home to say you love me. I feel sick, physically sick. I don't even want to step foot in that home anymore. Oliver, get lost. Don't let me see you again. I turned my back and didn't look at him again. The curtains slowly brightened. The room returned to its original quietness. When he left, it was silent and unnoticed. Chapter 12. The lawyer said Oliver didn't agree to the divorce. You said you would sue? Yes. He said he could. I frowned. The lawyer glanced at me hesitantly and said, I've handled many divorce cases. I feel like what he cares about isn't the company or assets. Then what does he care about? Probably not divorcing. Suing for divorce without clear property division usually drags things out longer. At midnight, I lifted the curtain and looked downstairs. A car was quietly parked by the roadside, coming late at night, leaving at dawn. This had been happening every day for a month. I put on my coat and went downstairs to the car. Through the window, Oliver was sleeping inside, wrapped in a coat. I tapped the glass. He suddenly opened his eyes. His eyelashes fluttered, revealing a look of disbelief. He got out and stood before me, his hands curling then relaxing. Julia. He started to speak but choked, seemingly unable to continue. After a few seconds, he slowly resumed. I didn't mean to show up in front of you. I just can't sleep. I think about you all the time. That house is full of your shadow. If I stay there any longer, I'll go crazy. Only here can I close my eyes for a while. Julia, please don't send me away. I won't disturb you. Then I'll leave. I interrupted him. He was stunned. Where will you go? I remained silent. His body trembled a little. No, Julia, you can't leave. In the night, he murmured anxiously and desperately. I looked at him sarcastically. Isn't this your fault? You refuse to agree to the divorce settlement. Suing means I have to see you again and again. So I'm leaving. After 2 years of separation, we can divorce, right? Oliver's face went pale, eyes full of despair. Julia, do you really hate me that much? I lowered my eyes, my emotions completely calm. Rather than hate, it's more like disgust. Disgusted to the point that I don't even want to fight over property with you, nor waste any more time and energy on you and your lover. We won't see each other anymore. You live your life. And of course, I will restart mine. If I find a new love, so much the better. It means I still have the capacity to love. That will also serve as evidence in court proving our relationship is completely broken. Oliver, stop fantasizing. I will never forgive you. Never. I turned and walked away. Behind me, the winter night was silent and empty. Chapter 13. I bought a ticket to France. Leaving this old place was for me a complete separation from the past. I told no one. Spent 2 days quietly packing, and early on the 3rd day, took a taxi to the airport. On the car, I fell into a tired sleep. When I woke, I found myself in an unfamiliar house. The interior was cozy and elegant. Outside were bamboo groves and plum gardens, with rolling mountains in the distance. It was a lonely villa in the mountains. A young nurse came in smiling and said, "Madam, it's time for your medicine." My heart sank. Where is Oliver? He'll be here soon. There's heavy snow on the mountain and the roads are bad, but he said he'll definitely arrive by 7. Where are my phone and luggage? The nurse smiled. Please take your medicine. I don't know about the others. I quietly asked, what illness do I have? You were in a car accident recently and your brain was affected. The doctors diagnosed you with delusional disorder. You need to take regular medication. So I can't leave now? Yes. The villa has no cars. Only outsiders can enter, and we can't get out. Besides, your current health condition is not suitable for going out. I threw the medicine out the window and turned to her. So since I have delusional disorder, whatever I do is justified, right? The nurse's face showed panic, and she hurriedly left. At 7 p.m., Oliver arrived. He was wearing a coat and leather gloves, with a thin layer of frost on his head and shoulders. Wrapped in the chill of the mountain air, he took off his gloves while smiling and said, Julia, the snow was heavy today. The car broke down halfway up the mountain. I walked 7 or 8 miles, rushing all the way. Luckily, I got home by 7. I looked at him coldly. Home? Isn't your home that house with Lily? That's where your lover and your son are. He turned his head, raised his eyebrows, and smiled at me. Julia, you're throwing a tantrum again. I picked up the lamp beside me and threw it at him. The lamp hit his forehead, leaving a blood streak right on the scar from when he was burned years ago. He didn't change expression, bent down to pick up the lamp, and gently said, Julia, don't you like this style? It's my fault. Tomorrow I'll buy the design you like, okay? Suddenly I broke down and shouted, why do you do this? Wouldn't it be better if I just left? You cheated. I just wanted a divorce. I didn't even seek revenge on you or Lily. Is that not allowed? Oliver showed a pained expression and softly said, Julia, we're husband and wife. How can we be apart? Don't shout so loud anymore. The weather is dry. It's bad for your throat. I stared at him in shock, feeling utterly strange. Is this Oliver? Is this the husband I've been married to for 5 years? Inside, I felt lost and terrified. After 5 days in this mountain villa, I gave up the idea of running away. The villa is located in a remote mountain hollow, with no signal. Only one nurse and one housekeeper take care of daily life. The heavy snow blocked all paths. Walking out was impossible. The only means of transportation was Oliver's car. He left for work every day at 8 a.m. and returned at 7 p.m., just like his old routine, except for not letting me leave. He didn't force me to do anything. He was even gentler and more patient than before. Most of the time, I silently curled up on the sofa holding my knees, while he entertained me with various topics, company affairs, social news, and his favorite history stories. Later I learned that he drives 2 hours to the company every day, spending 4 hours commuting, even in heavy snowstorms. He was never late a single day. I couldn't understand it. Aren't you tired? His eyes were warm and clear. Seeing you makes me not tired. So why did you cheat? He smiled, not hiding anything. Since coming to this house, he seemed determined to be completely honest with me. I experienced my parents' tragic deaths when I was young, then suffered relatives grabbing my family's property. Entering the business world, I was constantly surrounded by deceit and betrayal. I needed to vent extreme pressure, but I never wanted to use those methods and ways on you. I felt bitterly ironic. So you cheated on me with Lily. Oliver quietly looked at me and sighed softly. To me, sex and love are different. No matter how I treat Lily, I feel no psychological pressure. Julia, my heart has never left you. He stood up, carefully took out a pair of black gloves from the room, and looked at me tenderly. Julia, these are the gloves you gave me when we first met. Over the years, I have treasured them like a precious gem. From that day on, my heart has belonged only to you. Chapter 14. I became gloomy and spoke little all day. Oliver asked me how I could feel better. I glanced at him, disinterested, and said, I miss Nicole. Can you let me go out? He smiled. Your body hasn't fully recovered yet. Why bother going out? Why not just have her come visit? I suppressed the pounding in my chest. Is that okay? Oliver gently stroked my head. As long as you want. Nothing's impossible. The next day, he really drove Nicole up the mountain. Nicole happily ran over and hugged me. Julia, I was wondering where you disappeared to these days. Turns out you were hiding in such a nice place for recovery. I hugged her, both moved and shocked. At the dining table, as I was looking for a chance to hand Nicole a written note, Oliver suddenly asked casually whether Nicole's father was satisfied with the project. Nicole loudly said he was extremely satisfied, so much that her whole family invested their assets and even increased their leverage several times. You can't withdraw halfway, or our entire family will go bankrupt. Haha. Nicole laughed carefree. Oliver smiled. Of course. Since you and Julia are friends, how could I let her friend suffer a loss? I froze. Oliver looked at me gently. Julia, with friends visiting you, do you feel better? I stiffly nodded. 2 days later, Oliver brought Alice. Alice's eyes reddened when she saw me. Julia, when I visited you, you were still unconscious in the hospital. Now you've recovered so well, you finally made it through. Alice's father was a gambler. Her brother was in jail for fighting, and she had an autistic son. The whole family relied on her hard work over the years. I dared not act rashly. In the plum garden after the first snow cleared, Alice and I sat chatting on a stone bench, laughing continuously. Oliver stood on the second-floor balcony with one hand in his pocket and the other holding a cup of coffee, happily watching us. I sighed. Back in the dormitory late-night talks, we all boasted about traveling the world, but reality slapped us in the face. Alice laughed. Yeah, if you really go to France this time, maybe you'll really take the first step. She waved and smiled, greeting Oliver. I suddenly became quiet. Alice. How did you know? I'm going to France? Chapter 15. Alice stiffened. I slowly spoke. No one knew I was going to France. The only place the itinerary could have leaked was the ticketing platform. And as the CFO, you had access to the shareholders' information. So, you knew everything from the start? My voice trembled as I spoke the last words. Alice, did you even participate in kidnapping me? Alice stammered. Julia, I know Oliver would never hurt you. So, about my family's situation. I gritted my teeth and spoke clearly, word by word. What about Lily? You knew about her all along too? Alice's face turned pale. I gave a low laugh. How stupid was I? The CFO is such a key role. And Oliver, being so cautious, would only trust someone completely. Alice, I really misjudged you. Alice closed her eyes painfully. Julia, I'm sorry. My son's training costs are too high. I really needed this job. I was silent for a moment, staring out at the snow-covered valley. You know, if I say one word to Oliver, he'll fire you immediately. You won't only lose your job, I'll also sue you for leaking shareholder info. No company in this city will ever hire you again. Alice began to tremble. I coldly continued. Tomorrow at noon, you will come to pick me up by car. Alice, this is your one and only chance to make things right. Oliver approached with a scrutinizing gaze and asked, What are you two talking about? You look so serious. I sighed softly and put my arm around Alice, whose face had gone pale. Families with autistic children really have it tough. The next day at noon, light snow began falling. I stood on the balcony, gazing toward the road. Finally, a white car slowly appeared. I turned briskly, put on my coat, and went downstairs. In the living room, the housekeeper stared, asking where I was going. I didn't stop walking and headed straight outside. Only when Alice was driving did I finally exhale in relief. Oliver seemed suspicious. He specifically asked what we were talking about yesterday morning. He's always cautious, and I'm worried he might have followed me after I left the company. I looked at the growing snow and said solemnly, We need to leave the mountain before the road freezes. But not long after we started driving, the road was still icy. At a curve, the car slipped, crashed into the cliff, and stalled. Alice and I anxiously tried to fix the problem when Oliver's car sped over. He slammed on the brakes, got out with a dark expression, and strode toward me. I backed up step by step until I stood on the roadside slope. Oliver's face flashed with panic and he stopped about 3 meters away. Julia, come back quickly. You'll fall. I quietly watched him without moving. His eyes were bloodshot, teeth clenched. "Julia, come here." I glanced back behind me and spoke slowly, word by word. "Oliver, do you really love me that much?" After saying this firmly, I turned and leapt down. Almost at the same time, a figure flew toward me and tightly hugged me. We fell to the bottom of the slope. Oliver used his body to catch me. His right leg hit a rock and he couldn't move it. I silently climbed off him and lowered my gaze to look at him. "Julia." He reached out to me, his voice trembling. "Come home with me." Up on the slope, Alice shouted in panic. I looked up just as a large jeep stopped barely in time, and Lily got out, staring in disbelief at the scene before her. I closed my eyes, then turned to climb up the slope. "Julia." Oliver's torn scream came from behind. When Alice and I rushed to Oliver's car, Lily was anxiously dialing 110, emergency. I drove swiftly down the mountain. Inside the quiet car, Alice was silent for a long time before she asked, "Julia, you know he would definitely save you, right?" I pressed my lips tightly together. Tears streamed down my face. Chapter 16. I returned to my father's home. He remarried when I was 8 and had a younger brother with my stepmother. Over the years, I rarely disturbed his new life and seldom contacted him. But at this moment, I desperately needed the comfort of family. My father, stepmother, and brother were shocked to see me, each hurriedly bringing water and cutting fruit. Surrounded by the fragrance of books and tea, I fell into a deep, peaceful sleep. I slept a long, restful sleep. When I woke, it was already night. The three of them were quietly reading in the living room. My father and stepmother were university professors. My brother was a top student. My stepmother saw me and immediately went to the kitchen, steaming a plate of dumplings. She awkwardly called my name, saying she would make more if needed. Then she took my brother into another room, leaving the living room to me and my father. My father looked at me with deep eyes. "Julia, you've been wronged, haven't you?" Suddenly, I burst into tears. During this time, from first noticing clues about Lily, discovering Oliver's son, then the car accident and coma, to being trapped in the mountain villa for 2 months, one life-shattering event followed another. I hadn't even had time to feel wronged before I was already enduring a storm, painfully transforming into someone else. I felt wronged, but inside, I was deeply sad. Oliver risked his life to save me, yet I had left him alone in the valley. My father quietly listened to everything without interrupting. After a long silence, as my emotions gradually settled, he gently said, "Oliver is powerful and unwilling to let go of you. He will cause you trouble in the future, so divorce him and take back the company." I stared at my father in disbelief. He smiled at me. "Don't worry, divorce is troublesome, but not that troublesome." "And taking back the company?" I asked with tears. My father squinted slightly. "The first lesson I taught your mother about business was never to put all your eggs in one basket. She trusted Oliver but had to guard against him too. Many years ago, she also invested in a rival company, which has now grown significantly. Julia, don't worry, you still have your father." When I left, I couldn't help but ask, "Dad, why did you and Mom get divorced?" He answered me gently, "Your mother and I are completely different people. Being together only drained us both. Julia, marriage is about living a better version of yourself, and so is divorce. You've done very well these past days. Dad is proud of you." Chapter 17. The next time I saw Oliver was 3 months later. At the divorce signing, a lot had happened in the meantime. Stock transfers, Alice jumping ship to a rival company, Oliver's bigamy scandal, Lily being cyberbullied, Oliver's company changing hands, the divorce battle. It was all orchestrated and led by Dad. As for me, I quietly spent 3 peaceful months studying painting with a master. When Dad told me everything had settled, I was extremely surprised and deeply impressed by his scholarly ability. Dad pondered with a complex expression. "No, I did half the work. Oliver did the other half. Some things, he even took the initiative." On the divorce signing day, Oliver came leaning on a cane. I was looking healthy and radiant, while he looked haggard and thin. I stared at his lame leg, stunned. Throughout the signing, he was extremely cooperative, doing whatever was needed, but his gaze never left me. At the farewell, I asked him, "Why did you agree again?" He replied calmly, "I want to see you." What? He smiled faintly. I can't bear it anymore, whether it's the divorce or losing the company. I just want to see you again, Julia. We've never been apart this long. If I don't see you again, I'll die. Then he brightened a little. In a month, we'll see each other again, Julia. By then my leg should be healed. You won't see me looking so pitiful anymore. When I left the civil affairs office, I felt a burning gaze watching me all the way. When I turned into the parking lot to get into my car, Lily suddenly appeared. I was startled by how much her appearance had changed. Before, she was not striking but looked delicate and pitiful. Now, her eyes bulged. Cheekbones were prominent, and she looked sharper and more malicious. She stared at me. Julia, you really are my nemesis. I tilted my head and sneered at her. Lily, isn't this what you deserve? You're the mistress. Bullshit. I met him first. Loved him first. You're the mistress. Lily hissed with hatred. Her face twisted. I fell in love with him the first time I saw him at his parents' funeral when I was 17. I went through hell and high water, schemed and plotted, and finally made him love me too, but you were always standing in the way. You made me love Oliver in secret. Made it so my son never got a single hug from his father because Oliver was afraid you'd find out and get jealous. You caused his broken leg. Destroyed his hard-earned company. They took back the house. Our family is gone. Now everyone online is cursing me and my poor son. It's all because of you. I sighed softly. So why didn't you just quietly be his secret lover? Why did you have to stage that whole shaving razor scene? Chapter 18. Lily bit her lip tightly, eyes wide as she stared at me. I sneered and said, Oliver is a neat freak. He would never allow residue in his razor. So that razor was forged by you, right? When Oliver lovingly took out the gloves I once gave him, I suddenly realized, even though he betrayed me, he would never let me hand-knit scarf be tied on the toilet seat. So that day, you must have caught me following behind, right? In a short time, you faked the stubble, tied that red scarf on the toilet seat, and placed the sexy lingerie on the pillow. Afterwards, seeing my car still there, you shamelessly carried on with Oliver right in front of me. I looked at her coldly. So, it's all your greed that caused this. If you hadn't led me to suspect Oliver from something as small as him shaving at night, you could have kept living your underground family life with him. Human greed is like a snake swallowing an elephant. Lily, who else can you blame? Suddenly, a figure darted forward and grabbed Lily by the neck. Oliver's eyes were bloodshot, roaring angrily. So it was you. It was all because of you. You cunning and vicious woman. You caused my parents' tragic death. Made me lose Julia. You are a curse. A jinx. And you dare show up in front of Julia? I will kill you. Lily's eyes rolled back as she was strangled, her body slowly going limp. 2 security guards by the roadside rushed over, desperately pulling her away and finally rescuing her from his grip. Oliver, seemingly mad, continued shouting, I'll kill you! I'll kill you! Lily coughed violently a few times, then slowly straightened up, her eyes red. She looked at Oliver with sorrow and shouted, Oliver, we are family! This woman is the one who ruined you. Ruined me and our son. The one you should kill is her. She turned her head and glared at me fiercely. Bitch, you must die. Only when you're dead will everything belong to Oliver. To my son. A flash of malice suddenly appeared in her eyes, and she suddenly charged at me. Julia! Oliver rushed over and blocked her in front of me. A knife plunged straight into his heart. Bright red blood gushed out. He blinked in shock, then looked back at me and said, Julia, I'll never see you again. Then, with a thud, he collapsed. Lily stared blankly at her own hands, letting out a piercing scream. Shadows moved around. I stood frozen like a statue, petrified on the spot. Chapter 19. Oliver died from excessive blood loss. Lily was sentenced to life imprisonment for intentional homicide. Half a year later, Nicole and I stood outside an orphanage, watching a warm adoption ceremony inside. Lucas was taken in by a kind-looking couple. The little boy looked up at the man cautiously and asked, Daddy, can I hug you? The man smiled warmly and picked him up entirely. From now on, Daddy will hug you every day. Lucas's little face flushed with rosy color, and he giggled happily. At 3 years old, he was still very young and quickly accepted his new parents. It was a tragedy, but also a blessing. Nicole and I both sighed deeply at the same time. On the way back, Nicole frowned and suddenly said, "Julia, what if he comes looking for revenge on you when he grows up?" I chuckled. "You watch too many TV dramas." Nicole kept pressing. "What if? I mean, what if?" I looked straight ahead and smiled. "Then let him come. If he grows up confused about right and wrong, unable to distinguish good from evil, I won't hesitate to treat him with a firm hand. I do not reject the hardships of life, so I am prepared to face any trials. If he is lucky enough to grow into a discerning and ambitious young man, I will treat him sincerely and joyfully, like any other, whether good or bad. It will be his choice alone." Nicole tilted her head to look at me. "Julia, I'm glad you're still the same you after everything you've been through." I smiled and, under the clear blue sky, recited the classic line, "You hate those people so much. In the end, you become just like them. There is no ideal in this world that's worth sinking so low for."